Welcome to The Localist, a podcast for small business owners where we talk about the highs and lows of building community through entrepreneurship. I'm your host, author of the Localist book and small business consultant, Carrie Rollwagen. The Localist is sponsored by Infomedia, a Birmingham-based website and media company where I work as Senior Vice President. At Infomedia, we help small businesses get big results online. Our guest today is Blakely O'Connor. So Blakely runs The Craft Room. The Craft Room is a secondhand arts and craft supply store. It's a creative reuse store. And what that means is people from the community actually donate craft supplies that have been maybe gently used or maybe not used at all, and they're just extra supplies. And the Craft Room resells those supplies. We do talk about that process, but we also talk about the events that they put on because that's really what attracted me to the Craft Room in the first place. We talk about how they keep social media consistent, how they organize inventory when they never really know what inventory they're going to get. And also we talk through why the Craft Room is a for-profit business instead of a nonprofit business. So I really thought this was an interesting conversation. In researching the Craft Room, I actually kind of fell in love with it and ended up having my birthday party there. So this was just a few days before we recorded. I threw a big party there and it went really great. And we'll reference some of that in the podcast as well. The Craft Room is a business I was super curious about, so I'm really excited to have Blake on today to talk all about it. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, I mentioned in the intro, and you know this, but I had my birthday party at the Craft Room a couple days ago. So I'll talk more about that, but there were rave reviews, and I'm really excited to have you here today.
Also, I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. So first, I know you've gone over this a million times, but kind of tell people listening, what is the Craft Room? Like, how do you describe it to other people?
Yeah, if you were to come in the Craft Room, I'd give you the spiel of we're a creative reuse store or a secondhand arts and craft supply store. Everything throughout the shop is either donated or sourced from secondhand markets and is available for purchase. So our overall goal is to make arts and crafts more affordable and accessible and sustainable for the environment. So we take in donations of gently used and unwanted arts and craft supplies, and we sell them for thrifty prices. But we're also more than just a store. We wanted our space to be one where folks could make. So we have a rotating menu of drop-in crafts. We do workshops on the weekends, and we host private events like your birthday party.
Yeah. I was actually researching for the podcast and then was like, this actually seems really cool. So
That's awesome.
So yeah, the party technically came first, but not the idea came first for the podcast. So it worked out nicely. So let's kind of focus on the reuse side of it first, because I think so much of what you do is fascinating. The events I definitely want to get to because you guys have really cute events, and that was one of the things that first attracted me, like through your Instagram and stuff. Mm-hmm. But when you were thinking of starting this store, like, how did you know how to source? Like, one of the things I really like about your shop is that it seems really organized, because the concept could be just kind of like other people's junk, but it doesn't feel like that when you walk in. It feels really merchandised in a good way. So how did you approach, like, even starting to say, like, donate your supplies and we'll sell them?
So we, the idea for the store really came from wanting to have something in our community, and we're taking sort of examples from other creative reuse stores that exist throughout the country. But to get started, those initial donations it was really a big leap we really just put out a call on socials to see if people would be willing to donate. So before even we opened the doors, we'd probably collected 30 donations from all across town. I would drive around and pick them up in my car and store them in my attic. And we were collecting things even before we were allowed to move into the space. And so that initial big lift of organizing to see where things would go and what types of like storage and equipment we would need was a big undertaking, but it was also a little bit of a lesson in patience to wait until you get in, and then also being adaptable to see how things are organized. I really like the process of sorting and processing and organizing donations, probably more than I like crafting in a way.
Yeah.
It'll make sense when we talk a little bit
Yeah.
more of like, I like the presentation and the ordering of everything, but it is definitely a challenge. It's like one of the biggest like problems that we're always sort of working on and modifying during the week and even every day.
Yeah, because you don't have, I mean, you can't count on necessarily a certain inventory.
Right.
It could be anything that's getting donated. So that's going to like really change like the character of the store, really. So,
right. It's really cool. Or it was interesting to sort of discover as we were doing it that like if you were really perfectionistic, or you think about a regular brick and mortar, say you sold records, you could order a shelf that's the perfect size for records and know how many records you could put on the shelf and have it be that.
Yeah.
But we're constantly reorganizing and rearranging in a way that best highlights the materials that we get in, and also makes it fun to shop.
Yeah.
I think it was important, like I said, those examples from other creative restores, they are definitely excellent resources for the artistic community, but I also wanted our space to be one where you would feel like staying for a while. And so if you're a thrifter, you like to like go to estate sales, sometimes they can be a little chaotic or overwhelming, and you don't really, you're there for the find, but not necessarily there for the ambiance.
Yeah.
And so it was important to me that it feel like a good place that you would want to be. And so that's why we put so much effort into the organization.
Do you have shelves donated, or do you kind of refashion shelves or build your own or use creative stuff, or kind of a mix of all of those things?
A little bit of a mix. We some of the shelves in storage we bought new. You can go, I feel like an IKEA collects shelf does a lot. It has a lot of versatility.
Yeah.
One of my favorite finds, though, we got a couple of gem lockers off of Facebook Marketplace. And in those we store a lot of our fabrics and upholstery samples in, and that was a good score. They're blue, just like on brand. But we did get a lot of secondhand things. Our couch and our chairs are all from Facebook Marketplace. I think some of the bar stools and things for that, our high top tables, were also sourced from different places. We get a lot of containers in, and sometimes I guess maybe I'm a little particular about the containers that we use for merchandising and displaying, but then now we've started to also resell them because so many people have different types of organizational tools for their own craft supplies, and so now they've become a pretty popular
I know, I love that
category.
section. It's like a container of containers. It's pretty great. Do you remember some of the other reuse stores? Like, I've been to the Scrap Exchange in I think it's in Durham, maybe North Carolina, but are there other ones around that are, if you remember them, or even if you're like, these are things that I liked from these stores, or if you wanted to do something different from what they did?
Yeah, so I actually haven't been to any of the ones that are in the Southeast, but some of the most popular ones nearby are Turnip Green Creative Reuse is in Nashville. There's Scrap ATL and Scrap Atlanta in Georgia. But when I was in Boston, there was a creative reuse store called Make and Mend, and they are they operate a little differently. Most of the creative reuse stores throughout the country are nonprofits. They're 501c3s. I mean, and we are just a small business. And so there's a handful out there that operate as small businesses, Make and Mend being one. They have a really small storefront and then a really large warehouse that they do like fill-a-bag sales. So their storefront is really nicely organized and a nice place to be. I've also been to Seattle Recreative out on the West Coast, and it's a little bit more like the thrift store vibe, but they have a lot of really awesome materials and things too. So it was nice to go around to the different ones and see how how things are priced, how things are bundled, and how things are presented. So, because it is a very sometimes it's a tough decision to say leave things as they are, or do you bundle them up or upcycle them into something that would make it more obvious what somebody could do with it.
Yeah, yeah. But do you kind of base that on what the product is? Like when in your store, are you kind of like, we always keep it separate, or we always bundle it, or is it more just like it depends on what we have?
It depends. But I actually, as a philosophy to start, I was very anti-bundle.
Yeah.
Because I actually think that that's how we end up with so many leftovers and so many supplies, like collecting dust. Is like, if things are at a Hobby Lobby or a Michael's, if the only way this is an example we always use, if the only way you can get googly eyes is in a pack of 100, but you only needed 2, you're gonna go hunt. You're gonna have 98 left over, and what are you gonna do with them? The same for like packs of scrapbook paper. That's 144 of the pattern that you really only wanted one, or you appreciated that they put coordinated colors together, but did you need all of them?
Right, exactly.
And so my sister and I would joke, I reject the premise of the packs of paper and would split them up. But then sometimes there is, I think that that works, I think, really well for folks who identify as creative themselves or identify as crafty and have projects that they're working on. They really appreciate that they can buy just what they need, and that really reduces waste. But then we're also starting to learn that there are also people who appreciate a little bit more guidance in terms of what might look nice together, or can you put together the basic materials that you would need to start a project. And so we're exploring being a little bit more open-minded about the bundling.
Well, are there other things like that you've kind of like, you went in and thought like, we're going to do it this way, and then either you changed or you did some things, like once you kind of saw how customers were interacting with the product, like is there anything else that's like, oh, we used to store this way, but it just gets wrecked and we do I assume that's a lie.
No, it's I think people shop pretty well, but I would say that one of the biggest things that we've learned is that people actually do like to rifle through things. And if it looks too pretty or too organized, they won't. And so to make it look inviting enough that you're not going to mess it up, right? That I actually had to dial back a little bit of how organized things were. Otherwise, people would look at it and feel like they couldn't touch it. And so some of the things to put it in a way where you could flip through papers or flip through stickers, or that it would increase interaction, and people would feel more like they could touch it rather than just observe it in its organization.
That makes sense. Like even I had a junk journaling party, and there was a long table with all a bunch of different stuff, and it did feel organized, but it also felt like it wasn't like stacks of paper. It was kind of like you felt like people had already pulled from the pile, if that makes sense. And I do think it encourages you to just go ahead and go for it instead of like, I'm going to mess up this perfect stack here. Well, what went into the decision to do a regular business instead of 501c3?
That's a good question. I think that I wanted it to be a regular small business to operate, like to be able to have just the incentives of a business rather than having, in my mind, the 501c3 is not just a tax classification, but it is really just it's just an organizational difference, but not necessarily a philosophical difference. So the only thing that I think that we give up in that regard is that we aren't able to give people tax write-offs for donations that they make, and we're not able to seek grants to support our work. However, we do offer small store credits in exchange for when people bring things in. I think that I really wanted it to be just a proper small business.
Yeah.
Rather than sometimes I think that nonprofits could then feel like charity. And sometimes I think people do interact with the business is secondhand,
Yeah.
and most of their stores are also
Yeah.
charity.
Yeah.
But I think I view the work as almost like a redistribution project
Yeah.
of things. So it's still a big experiment to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's cool because I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing nonprofit or for-profit business. Like, there can be really use cases for both. But I think some people, when I talk to people who are first starting to think of things, sometimes they're like, oh, well, just be a nonprofit, and then we don't have to worry about profit at all. And that's not really true. It's actually like you still have to worry about making the money, but you also have a lot of other layers that you have to worry about. There's more, like, different kinds of paperwork and making sure, like, you have different things. And so I think sometimes it's actually difficult to operate something that functions as a store as a nonprofit because it's hard to straddle that line.
Right.
So I think it makes sense what you're saying is like, okay, let's be a for-profit business that still does good in the world.
Right.
Which is interesting to show that that's possible. You know?
Yeah. I'm fascinated with it. I think I would, if I were going to pursue an additional designation, it would definitely be more of a B Corp.
Yeah. So for people listening, it's just it's a kind of business where you're saying in your business model that we are trying to do this good in the world, and this is the good we're trying to do. Which sometimes doesn't matter. Sometimes matters if they're like shareholders and stuff. So that, which, I mean, maybe your dream is to grow that big. Probably not. But like, so it really matters for, like, I think Patagonia is a B Corp.
Yeah.
So in that case, their shareholders can't be like, well, make this decision that's bad for the environment so that we can make more money. Because then Patagonia can say, no, we're a B Corp. So we're allowed to say no, you know.
Right.
But I think maybe the reason you might think about it is for the customer side, because they see B Corp and they're like, oh, I get it. We're trying to do something good here.
Right. It's not where the mission of the business is not exclusively the financial profit.
Right.
The mission of the business can have other goals that it's trying to achieve in addition to its financial sustainability.
Yeah. Which I feel like you guys are doing on a lot of levels. I mean, there's just the fact that it's a local business and you're part of a community, and especially I feel like West Homewood is a really growing community right now. Like, maybe even talk a little bit about how has that been, because that is, I mean, I feel like not living in Homewood, it used to be like, oh yeah, Seeds is over there. And now it's just like everything is, I mean, you guys are there, the collective, Cantina's across the street, is that right? Or
it's not there anymore.
Oh, okay, sorry. Never mind. But the Albario's over there, and Paramount has another location over there, and you know more about it than I do. But I feel like that grew up really fast. Does it feel like that to you, or are you like? Yeah.
I feel still very new in town, so I actually I live about 2-3 blocks from the craft room.
Okay.
And we moved over there a little over 2 years ago. And when we did, there were a lot has changed in that time frame.
Yeah.
But I think if you look back 5 years or 10 years, it looks entirely different.
Yeah.
And we have people come in and say that all the time. They're like, I had no idea all of this stuff was over here. So there's definitely like a lot of props and a lot of shout out goes to Seeds for being there and for having been there the longest and taking the risk on the area. But with every new business that moves in, like the collective, like Onward, Nexus, the gym, I go down the street, like everyone is very committed to the area, and we really love the neighborhood. When I moved over there, I was in a different part of Homewood, but when we moved over to West Homewood, the first thing that really stood out to me and that really boosted my quality of life was the walkability, that you could walk to the park or walk to the pool or walk to get neighbor's ice cream, and it there aren't that many places in Birmingham where you can walk
Yeah.
and do all of those things. And so it really is a little special area. And that was also part of the driving force of wanting to open the shop there
Yeah.
and have it be in that area. It's like a way to contribute to my immediate neighborhood
Yeah.
as well.
Which I think is a hugely important thing, particularly for a local business, to respond to the neighborhood that you're in, which I think you guys are doing, especially, yes, with just the reuse and the craft supplies, but also with all the events that you're doing and things. So maybe we can shift a little bit to events, and I'm sure I'll come back with other questions. But it seems like events are a huge part, like from looking at your Instagram, it seems like events are a big part of what you do. Is that, like, was it part of the business model from the beginning, or did you just kind of see, like, oh, people really like these, or both?
We knew that events would be a part of the business model, but we definitely see ourselves as a retail store first and foremost. But having the space be one where you can make, and having the opportunity to host events definitely was a part of the original design of the space and the way that it's laid out to be able to have people gather. I think that making things with other people is a really is one of the best ways to build bonds in your community and make connections with other people. And so we kind of knew that would be something that we would do from the beginning.
Yeah, I read a little bit, I can't remember exactly what you said, but about, like, crafting actually helps conversation. And that was, like, for example, the party I had, I thought, originally I was just thinking of going to dinner with, like, 4 or 6 people. And then I was like, okay, well, we could do this, and I can invite people who don't necessarily know each other, but because they have something to do, it won't be awkward, which is how it turned out. Like, it was great. People were talking to each other because you have something to talk about instead of just sitting at dinner and being like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and then it's also hard at dinner because the thing that you could do is eat, and then if somebody asks you a question while you're eating, it adds to the awkwardness. Versus you could be in the middle of drawing or gluing or stitching and stop what you're doing and answer a question, or keep looking down at what you're doing and carry on the conversation.
Yeah.
But I think that there are lots of crafting is not the only thing that makes conversations easier. That certainly, but I think that sometimes having your hands be busy, or having your, like, I have the best conversations with folks, like, on walks where you're not, like, looking directly at each other, but you're going towards the same goal, or in car rides, or in working on a shared project.
Yeah. No, I think so. And it was cool not only to see that people could do something so it, like, takes away some of that awkwardness, but also, you know, you're doing collage, or you're doing something that shows part of your personality. So I also noticed, like, oh, you would be like, oh, that reminds me of this show that I watched, and they're like, oh, I watched this too, or like, I didn't know that you were, like, this is really cool. So I felt like it was kind of an ideal situation of, like, oh yeah, all of this is coming together, kind of, I think, like you planned or hoped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's you bring up a good point of one of the things, especially for our crafts and the things that we do in private events, largely center around relatively open-ended crafts, that there's not a lot of instruction. So sometimes people ask, is it like a sips and strokes? And it's like, it's like your eclectic aunt sips and strokes of, like, we're not going to tell you what to do. And sometimes that's scary for people because they're like, please give me a little bit more guidance about how to make a final product that is, I'd like to hang in my home. But I think that having less structured types of crafts where you do sort of just follow your own instinct and grab what speaks to you allows for those same observations. That's like, oh, well, I'm always surprised by the different things that other people make, and I know that I could have never told them or instructed them to do it. And it is really a gift to see then all the different types of things that people can make. Without me telling them.
That was exactly. Somebody asked me that afterward. He wasn't there, and he was like, was it like that? And I was like, No, because I do think in those things, there's nothing wrong with those either. But it's like you're following instructions and typically creating the same kind of thing that everybody else is creating. And then it's also like you are supposed to finish while you're there. And I felt like what we were doing, it's kind of like you're just starting this and then you can continue later. So like I was doing a lot of talking and not much crafting, but it didn't really matter because I wasn't trying to finish a painting or something.
Right.
Does that make sense? Well, how do you come up with because I feel like the names of your events are really cute. Like, I think for Valentine's Day, you had seed dating or
bead dating.
Bead dating, yeah. Like instead of like speed dating or like I can't like I think maybe you bedazzled like Bic lighters or something. Like it was just really fun plays on like themes.
Yeah.
And I felt like every time I see one, and your calendar's pretty packed. Like you usually have, it seems like 4 or 5 in a month. So who comes up with those? Or I mean, I assume it's a mix, but
yeah, we have a combination of different types of workshops. We have, I would say, at least 50% of our calendar is community led, that there's an artist or a creator in the community that comes to us with something that they would like to share, and we use the craft room as a platform for them to be able to host a workshop. We've done that for printmaking, for collage, for crochet, other types of crafts, and then we have some that are in-house. I think we get a little bit more not more creative. I don't want to say that we're more creative than the other, but a little bit more exploratory, experimental with what we do in house, because it's like, well, we have the supplies, or what could we do with that? And so the bead dating was one where we have actually this cabinet in the back. When beads come in and they're donated, you can imagine that having those sorted and organized in a way that would be appealing to others might be very difficult. And so we actually called it bead hell in the back. It was like, what are we going to do about bead hell? And one day we were like, we're going to have to deal with it somehow. And we were talking about how sometimes beading or making bracelets, like people love to do it, but then they also really like to sort them. And so when we did bead dating, we were like, we're going to pull out all the beads, but not have an effort of like making it be really organized. And we're going to see what people do. Like they can make, and they can, make a charm, or they can make a bracelet, but we'll see what happens. And what was interesting with that event is that I would say like 80% of the people were just sorting. And so we're actually going to bring that one back with the bead sort, because I think that people really like to have that like a tactile task. And I don't know. I mean, I guess if you spilled your container of really organized beads at home, you'd probably be frustrated. You'd be like, who would want to fix that? If it's something else, and I don't know, it is a little bit of a treasure hunt. We found separately, this is a little tangent, but separately with beads, we had sometimes sorted and merchandised them to make them very consistent, and we found that people really like the ones that are jumbled up anyway, and I don't know why that not jumbled up, but the mixture. I think that there's the possibility of what might be in it is a little bit more exciting than to say, oh, that's bagged and sorted and tagged to be exactly red seed beads or whatever.
No, I totally understand. I have this. I almost made like a quilt of perler beads in my office, and so then we did like a bunch of people like just did crafting, and like half the people were just sorting, because it is like you're just wanting something to do with your hands, and it does feel you're still feeling like you have a sense of completion. So that is really funny though.
It's very satisfying. I'm definitely team sort. I like to make other things too, but I would.
Well, I could see that too, especially when I'm around other people, like to say, okay, I'm concentrating on the conversation and I just have something to do instead of trying to. Well, what are some of your either favorite events that you've had or even events that you're like, I thought this would hit and it really didn't? But
my favorite event that we've had so far was probably, we did a winter solstice craft, and we did a lot of like winter themed, like we had citrus garlands and pine and cinnamon, and people made little hanging ornaments.
Yeah.
But we also did some journaling and reflecting, and we managed to make the craft room a little moody, which is like, it's normally such a bright and light and fun place, but we did it in the evening and had candles all out, and it was really special. And I think, well, for me, seasonality and like being in tune with the seasons is inherently linked to sustainability. And so it was kind of nice to bring those two ideas together, to have both a craft and observation of the longest night. I'm trying to think. We did we had one event that was a wild card event that didn't go as planned, but that was we had between the sheets the crocheted bookmark panties, and that one was more, that was definitely like for us as the creators, but didn't resonate as much with the audience. But it was like got a lot of engagement on social media, but didn't necessarily convert to folks in the room. But
well, and that's
fun.
interesting too, because I feel like both of those kind of have a reason. Like, so for the Localist and Infomedia, which is a company where I work, we have this monthly event, and part of it is the event itself. Like, that's part of the point. But part of the point is that people engage with us promoting it. So even if they don't come, they're still more familiar with what we do, or it's boosting a post that is always helpful, because teaching the algorithm people care about what you do is helpful. So I think for us, like, yes, it's about the event, but it's also about all of those things too. So how do you decide like when you're going to promote? Like, is it like a week before, 2 weeks before? Like, have you found the sweet spot yet? Or
that's a good question. And when you're hyping me up, just say that it's fine at my event. I know that's still good for the algorithm.
No, I really think it is.
No, we're still definitely figuring out. So far, we found that about 2 weeks before is the sweet spot for having a dedicated post for a specific event. Much further out, and I think people aren't ready to commit to buying the ticket yet, or they're not sure what they're doing. Less than that, people don't have, maybe they've already made other plans. And so, since we typically do things on the weekends, 2 weekends before, to be like, what's on your radar, seems to work. We've started trying to get a little bit further out to have a calendar for the month available at the beginning of the month, and those are, I think, for our more dedicated followers. I can tell they're starting to look a little bit sooner and book out a little bit longer, but for most people finding out about something, we're looking about 2 weeks out.
That makes sense. I think that's helpful to say, like maybe calendar a month ahead, start promoting 2 weeks ahead. Like, I think that makes a ton of sense. So
because otherwise I feel, and I do all of the socials. I make all of the posts. I do all of the posters. It's a bit much, but I feel less like there's also that awkward feeling of needing to say the same thing over and over again. I really don't like to do it. I'd rather sell them all out on the first post and never have to say it again. But if I find that it keeps it a little less like repetitive, or because I'm also conscientious of, I know who is interacting and engaging, and I know that if they see it, they'll want to do it. If they don't want to, that's okay. But I don't want to like feel like I'm bombarding them for like months at a time, since we do have such a full count that we have something almost every week.
Well, and I do think doing the social yourself, especially, you are good at it. So it's like, that's me saying that.
Thank you.
But like, I think like it all looks very consistent branding. All the details are there. It's. Again, that was the first thing that attracted me to what you guys are doing, was looking at the Instagram and seeing like, oh, this is really well put together. Also, just seeing the craft room itself on Instagram, I think was helpful to see like, oh, this is really well organized, But I do think it's like, it's weird to say it's a hack because I think we do this as small business owners because we don't have the bandwidth, but doing it yourself is kind of helpful, and then you know all the things, so you're not having to translate between somebody else. And I think sometimes social media is the first thing that people give to some like outsource, which can be great. It's not totally opposed to it, but I do think one of the reasons I think the Instagram feels like you or feels like the craft room is partially because you know what that is, and it's easier for you to communicate it directly instead of communicating it to someone else.
Yeah, it would have been impossible for me to communicate it to someone else. They're like, there's all these things. There's so many different goals that we have and different things that we want to try to communicate. I think some of it is definitely limited by my inability to dictate that to another person and have the result come out anything like I wanted. But it is nice to be able to stay connected to what, and to see immediately like what is resonating with people and what isn't.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little and talk about like how you got into this, because as I was researching, I saw that you have a PhD from Harvard. That's a big deal.
Just a little.
Think. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like the most obvious precursor to starting a reuse store. No. So do you mind talking a little bit about how that kind of evolved? Do you still use that like education or side of yourself, or just kind of like how that turned into this?
Yeah. So I am an engineer by training. I went to Auburn for undergrad and went to grad school at Harvard. I wanted to be a professor and teach and have my own research lab. I ended up graduating in April of 2020.
Oh, yeah.
I did one of the first Zoom defenses that I think was maybe in Harvard's history. Not as big of a deal to do a defense on Zoom now. It was horrible then. And at the time, my husband was also in grad school there, in business school, and we had 2 small children. And we'd been living in Boston for 6 years in a little 700 square foot apartment. And we considered ourselves really good at doing hard things, but then when the lockdowns happened and childcare was closed and all the things, we kind of tapped out. We knew we eventually wanted to come back to Alabama, come back to Birmingham. I'm from about an hour from here, but we knew we wanted to come back south eventually, but we just came back a little bit sooner than we thought. He finished up grad school remotely on Zoom. Again, the last year. Not how you expect to get your MBA, but that's fine. And since we've been back, I've worked in a variety of industries, from early stage startups to nonprofits. I was at UAB for a little bit doing research and teaching, or doing grant writing for researchers. But I realized that I really wanted to have a brick and mortar. I wanted to be more in the community. So much of what I think I couldn't have expected getting my PhD is that so many of the jobs would end up wanting to put you aside and say, think about this really hard thing for a long time and come back when you're done. Because I really like meeting new people. I like interacting with other people. I also like engaging the creative side and doing things with my hands. So I would find that whenever I was doing a lot of things that were more desk work oriented or thought work, that I would just sometimes end the day and feel like, what did I do? And it's been very interesting now at the craft room to say, like, I feel the tangible effects of what I do with every day so much more. I still do some of the research work. I do contract and like consulting and help people. I still help people write grants.
Yeah.
I teach a grant writing class.
Yeah.
But then it has shifted now from being, and it's actually probably been a difficult shift from being a PhD researcher who also likes to do arts and crafts, which is kind of like an eclectic, like, I don't know.
It's quirky.
It seems like a quirky, a quirky researcher.
Yeah.
That's a hobby that you also have.
Yeah.
Or that you also, like, you do CrossFit or you have your yoga teacher training. Like,
yeah.
Oh, cool. But
Yeah.
it's been interesting in the last 6 months to then shift from being like, I'm a shop owner.
Yeah.
Who also has a PhD.
Yeah.
And it's
that's not as common of a side hustle.
No.
Yeah.
No. And it is a different, that's probably been one of the most interesting or like unsuspecting changes.
Is it more of a change in that it's just kind of how do I organize my day, or is it like, sometimes we identify so much with our jobs. Like I used to own a coffee shop and bookstore, and I felt like that aligned really well with my personality. And then when I sold that store, it was really hard to be like, okay, who am I now?
Or
like,
that was a thing that I did, but
right.
now I don't anymore.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. That I think that there was a little bit of, about a year ago, I was doing a lot of deep reflection and thinking about what it was that I wanted to do after taking a step back from the academic role. And one of the prompts that I wrote down was, what identities will I have to give up to make space for the things that will truly make me happy and feel fulfilled and will align with my values. And so there's this big long list of things, of identities that I've accumulated along the way that are not or were not in the direction of where I wanted to go. Definitely hard to let go of. And so that's been a long time in the works. But then I would also say very recently, I realized that I saw a TikTok, a video that was like, what are people think, like, what are you giving up when you try to live a more sovereign life or a life that's aligned, that's fully created just by you and not societal expectations of what you do. And most people think that you're trading sovereignty or freedom of your choice for security. Right, you're giving up security, and you do give up a little bit of being a small business owner. You're giving up a little bit of security, but what they said was you're actually giving up acceptance. That whenever you follow traditional paths of higher education signals to somebody who you are and where you fit in the world, and having a partnership or a marriage, like traditional relationship signals who you are and where you fit in the world. So giving up one of those aspects of who I am and where I fit in the world, really change, or trading it out for one that was very different has been sort of eye-opening for me, because I do feel like people treat me differently as a small business owner or as a artist or as like that. That I'm treated differently than when I presented Harvard PhD.
No, I think that makes total sense. One of the, I don't want to call it a trick, but one of the things that I think was helpful for me was kind of, I read something about like, take those things, like the things that you're giving up, and like write down the qualities that align with those. And that was helpful for me because those qualities are still me. Like, owning a bookstore was never really me. It was just something that I did. But what are those things that I was proud of about me? Because you carry those with you.
Right.
But yeah, I think it is really interesting. And I think it's interesting to look on paper, because at first when I was researching, I was like, is this the same person?
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, no, it's not that, but most people wouldn't say, I'm going to walk away from this, or even take a step to the side, because it is really cool. And I mean, also represents a lot of work and a lot of study and all of those things. And that is hard to say, well, I want to live this kind of life, so I'm going to at least take a step back, even if I'm not leaving it totally. And owning a small business, I think it is interesting too, because people kind of want to identify with one aspect of who you are. Like, I ran my shop with a guy named Cal, and he was like, there's more to us than like crazy guy and quirky girl, but like that's who people want to buy coffee from. And so like it's interesting because you have a relationship with your customers, but it's also it can be kind of one dimensional.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of identity stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, while you're running a business that's also based on an inventory that you can't control. So and having, you have small kids still, right? Yeah. So that's a lot. Well, kind of, I wanted to talk about how people could get connected to the store. And obviously, I want to talk about events and crafting too, but just even from a donation aspect, how does that work? Like, how do they, what do they bring? What don't they bring? How do you even manage that to not get a lot of trash?
Well, most people don't bring just trash. I would say, I think that's also been, I think that's a big misconception, and maybe something that I've been very pleasantly surprised by is that I would say a lot of people bring in genuinely really nice and valuable things. There's things that like we get a lot of that we're like, oh no, more of more of the thing. But there's very few things that we actually get that we're like, that's like people aren't dropping off, like dumping junk. But right now, we take donations pretty much anytime we're open. And I always tell people until we learn the hard way to do otherwise. But right now that's still working for us. We take all types of arts and craft supplies and creative materials, pretty much anything you can find at a Hobby Lobby or a Michael's, as long as it's clean, usable, and non-hazardous. So we don't take spray paint or like sharps or paint thinner, things like that. We do have a thorough guideline on our website about what we do and don't take, so you could always look at that.
And you still, even if you use half of the paint, you can still donate it.
Yes, right? It does not need to be pristine or in unused condition. So we do, like, we spent a lot of time organizing and reorganizing and thinking about how it could be presented. And so we resell, I would say, the majority, probably 90% of the supplies that we use. If there's something that I know that absolutely, like, would be difficult to resell, sometimes we'll come up with crafts that make use of it. That's what, or we'll incorporate it into one of our events because we're less more open-minded and less judgment. I don't know. We put the nicest stuff out, and then we will also reuse some things that that are a little worse for wear but still usable. I think I mentioned we do a small store credit in exchange. So if it's a paper grocery bag or a small moving box, we do $5. Medium moving box is $10. The only thing we ask is if it's more than a medium moving box at a time, that you give us a heads up to make sure that we have space and can process it.
So that's how you donate. And then if you're wanting to just come and work on a craft or even just come hang out, you can do that, right? Like, so you can either hope there's space at the table or reserve space at the table. Is that right? Or
there's a couple different ways that you can make at the craft room. One is to come and buy something off the shelf and sit down and start using it right away. That's one way. We have a rotating menu of drop-in crafts, so that are basically like price projects that you can work on while you're there. And then we have some folks that like to bring projects from home that they're working on something. So if you're knitting or crocheting, or you're junk journaling and you have all your stuff but you just want to be in the space, you can come and bring the space.
And you guys have drinks and stuff available, so sodas, waters, beer and wine. Is that, am I remembering correctly? Okay.
Yeah. We have a small selection of snacks and then a fully stocked fridge with alcoholic and non-alcoholic drink options.
So it's also a place you can just like meet a friend and not have a plan. You could just come have a drink and shop, maybe craft, maybe not. And then for the events, is the best place to check it out on the Instagram, or is there another place to watch for events?
Our website and Instagram both have all of the event info.
Cool. Yeah. And then if you want to reserve a party like I did, the instructions for those were also on the website. So you could rent out the space and I thought that was great because it was a really good price to rent it out. If people wanted to do the craft, they could pay the craft fee, and if not, they just came in and hung out. So, yeah. Well, so is checking out your website, Instagram, or just stopping by, are those the best ways to experience the craft room?
Yeah. I think so. We have an email newsletter too.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can get most of the info from the Instagram and the website, or stopping by.
Yeah. Well, we'll put all that stuff in the show notes so people can find out more about you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. The Localist podcast is written and produced by me, Carrie Rollwagen. Our outreach manager is Hannah Cragen. Our showrunner is Taylor Davis. And we record right here in the Infomedia studios. Our engineer today is Paul Bryant. Thank you so much to Infomedia for sponsoring the podcast and making all the work we do possible. If you're in Birmingham and would love to come to a live recording of The Localist, we would love to have you. The Localist Lab meets monthly at Saturn in Avondale. The sessions are free. We have really practical advice on marketing for small business owners, and you can get your ticket in the show notes. So until next time, whether you're buying from a small business or running one, thank you for all you do to make our community stronger every day.